Hi guys, I'm just doing a little video to show you how to make this 3-point connector with some craft wire and then embellish it with some seed beads. Um, it is part one of kind of a 3-part video series that I'm doing to make an entire project, but I wanted to break out a couple of the parts into smaller videos so that if you just wanted to make the connectors, you only have to watch that instead of the whole thing. Now the full project is going to be a multi-layered necklace where I've got the strand that goes behind the neck and it's connected on the side to a kind of a central part that goes in the front and then a longer part that goes down the middle. So part one is going to be the connector piece. Part two, which will be coming up, is it's going to be a length of flat mesh that has some dangles beaded to it with bead weaving. And the thing about this is that I'm going to make it so it can be disconnected from this connector and worn as a bracelet. So you can convert it from being part of the necklace to being part of a bracelet if you wanted. And then part three, that'll be the last video. That's where I'll take both of these parts and I'll combine them with the rest of the necklace. So that's just to give you an update on what's coming up. But for right now, we're gonna do part one with the connector. And for this, I think it's fairly simple to do. I'm gonna be using 20 gauge craft wire. And I've got about, let me see, I've got, this is in centimeters, sorry. I've got about 26 centimeters, which if 10 centimeters is 4 inches, then that is about 10 inches, 9, 10, something like that. And I'm going to be using this to make this connector, and it might seem like a lot for this, but I just don't want to have to run out of my wire partway through, because there's going to be some turning and making loops and then wrapping at the end, and I'm going to have some excess. I'm okay with that. To make it, the tools that I'm going to be using is some flush cutters, first of all, some chain nose pliers for tucking in my ends, but for the shaping, I'm going to mostly be depending on my 6-step bail making pliers. I'm going to be using this one. It is the first step, the smallest one. I'm going to be using that for my loops, both on the top and at the sides, to keep them consistent. And then for the central part, I'm going to be using the largest part of my 6-step bail making pliers. Now, if you don't have 6-step bail making pliers, you can still do this. If you have something that's cylindrical, that is about the size that you want that connector to be, like if you've got the end of a Sharpie, or this is a metal file that I use for filing the ends of the ear wires that I make. And this part right here is about the same diameter there at the end as my bail making pliers. Why are you so bad at focusing right now? So it's something that could be used as well if I didn't have that. And you can, if you don't have something about this diameter, if you've got some round nose pliers, then about the center part of this is about the same size as the 6-step bail making pliers. So you can still make this even if you don't have these, but I find them really useful. I have not once regretted buying this because I use them all the time for wire working. So this is a combination of wire working with some bead weaving, because we're going to be using the what is it called? Brick stitch. We're going to be brick stitching some beads onto the side. You don't have to do that. I think it looks fine without it. I just also wanted to like fancy it up a little bit with these beads. So the first part is you take your wire and straighten it, warm it up, get it ready for bead weaving or for bending. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make my lower loop. I'm just going to grab about the middle of that and bend both of these over so they cross over like that. And now I've got my first loop. Now I'm going to want to bend the wire into a circle this way. So I'm going to take my loop where it's at, and I'm going to start bending this around. I've got this pinched right here. I'm going to start bending it around this to get there. Now, this part is going to be fine. I'm going to leave that like that, but here is where I'm going to want to make another loop on the side. So I have this over here like this. I'm going to pinch it so that my loop that I'm going around is on the outside of my circle. And then I'm going to bend my wire around, shift this so it's not in the way, and keep it going all the way around until it comes up over here on the other side. And now I can finish forming this around my entire bail making pliers. So I'm going to pull this down this way, and then I'm going to push. I'm not pulling on it because I don't want this loop that I made to deform. I'm pushing it around the bail making pliers in order to make that loop. I'm going to grab my, see how the loops are a little bit weird there? I'm just going to smush this a little bit, just flatten it out. But I also am going to give the loops themselves a little smush just to work harden them, because I don't want my circle to deform much, if at all, when I do this. So I'm just giving this a little smoosh there to bring that next to that wire, and then also smooshing this link. And I'm going to give this a little smoosh along this side because I want this to stay like circular as we go. All right, so here we are. We've got it mostly in a circular. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. It's totally fine if it's a little bit on the wonky side, but I'm going to want to bend part of this up and away at an angle because that's going to be my loop on top. And now I'm going to just pinch both this side and this side in my fingers and pull this around. And I'm only going to do it twice because it just needs to be able to connect it. It's not completely circular, so I'm going to just jump this in here. Try to get this looking more like a circle, and it's a little bit bigger than this now. That's fine. That is fine, because that's about the same size as this loop is. And see, it's not perfectly perfect. I am not the kind of person that things need to be perfectly perfect with. All right, so see, I've got some excess. I'm okay with that. I will find something to do with this, I promise. That is more than enough to make some links with. And I am actually going to be making links for the lower part of the necklace. So I'm going to put that, set that aside so I can make some links with that. All right, now I'm going to bend this at a right angle above these loops. I'm going to put the smallest one up on top, and I'm going to just bend this around, like all the way around there, so that it makes a little loop. I'm going to grab onto it and wrap it around the other way. There we go. So now I've got a link with two connectors. And And like when you do connectors for multi-layer things, you know, you can have connectors that are just a single loop, or things that have a loop at the top and the bottom, or things that have like several loops on the bottom altogether. But I wanted for this one to have my additional loop to be on the side when I do these. So I'm going to brick stitch along here on this side in order to embellish it. To brick stitch it, I am using a wide eye needle and some green dragon thread, and you don't need a lot of this. I just move this up because this is actually the same length of thread that I used on this one. I just cut it off and there's enough left for me to do it for this one. But I got this green colored, dark green color dragon thread. It will work really well with the beads that I'm using, which are these dark green metallic beads and some dark red beads. And these are 11-0 Toho seed beads, metallic iris brown. It looks like dark green to me. It's probably the iris part of it. And you don't need very many of these. So to get started with the brick stitching, you're going to start off with 2 beads. And I'm just going to pinch the thread in my finger here and hold it up against here so that it doesn't go anywhere. And I'm going to go under this, and these beads will pop up on top of here. And then I'm going to go up through the bottom of this smaller bead here. Should I zoom in? I think I should zoom in so you guys can see this better. This, actually, let me zoom. So you've got the thread going under and then back through the same bead that it came out of. And that is what kind of attaches it there to the next one. So now I'm going to pick up another one of these beads. I'm going to go under here with it, and I'm going to leave it up here at the top next to it, and then go up through the bottom of that bead. And this is brick stitch. It lays the beads on flat like they're on a brick. Now this tail end I'm going to be getting to later, so you can see it kind of being wonky there. I will absolutely take care of that when I get back to this side, because I'm going to go across with one row from this end to this, and then I'm going to go back the other way. But we're going to finish up this one row of these brown iris / dark green beads. And every time you go underneath it, you want to pick up a bead first. And then after you go underneath it, go back through that same bead that you just added. And pull it tight. And it sets it right on there. This one's gonna be real loose, but that's okay. My finger's keeping it there. You just pick up a bead, go back through. Whoop, you went under. I'm trying to use my finger to hold it there. That's why I'm going a little bit slowly. and a little bit carefully. Up through the bottom. Like, if you just want to use the links as they are, you don't have to add stuff like this to it. You could use some really fine gauge craft wire and just wire wrap it if you wanted in order to add some beads to the edge. That would look fantastic. But part of my other project is going to involve some bead weaving. So, you know, I just wanted to keep this component consistent with the aesthetic that I'm going for with it. You know what? I think I'm gonna go ahead and try to attach this end before I get to the first part. And I'm gonna do that by taking my needle off of this end. And this is why I love these wide-eye needles. And I'm going to string it onto this, my end that's way over here. My beginning end, and maybe I should have left myself a bigger tail, but it should be fine because this is a very small needle. So I should be able to maneuver it all right. So I'm just opening up my needle like this, and then I can put my thread in there, give a little pinch, and pull it down into the corner of the needle. Okay, so this guy over here needs to be secured. Come on, friend. All right, so I'm going under and then back up through this guy. And I would like for him to be attached to this loop over here. So I'm going to go through the loop as well. And then back up through this. So it's attached underneath and then to the side. I'm going to pull this off of my needle so I can go back to finishing up my brick stitch here. I know I stopped in the middle of it. You don't have to. I just felt like it was dangling a little too much for my comfort. But I'm going to attach this back to my needle so I can finish up my brick stitch. Oh, didn't go through. Okay, there it is in my needle. Pick up probably 2 more of these, one at a time, to get them attached here to the end. Come on, friend. Go up. Yeah, I've got room for one more along here. And like how many of these you use is going to depend on how big of a loop you've made. And I'm going to go up through it. All right, and I'd like this top part to be attached to this. So I'm going to have my my thread go around while I'm pinching it, around my loop here. My loop wraps. And then I'm going to put my needle underneath this loop that I just put on. It's a really, like, it's not going to be like a firm knot or anything, it's just going to keep it attached to the edge there. And it's also going to give me a good basis for adding my next row. So I'm going to grab a single 11-0 for my next row, and in this one I'm changing colors, and I don't know if you can see the thread along the top of these. I'm going to be sewing into those loops in order to attach this. So I've got this loop here. I'm going to sew into that. Actually, no, I need to do 2 of those because I want that to be over there. Hold on. Let me start that part over. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to edit this. Don't worry. All right. All right, so to do the second layer, I'm switching colors, and I'm going to grab 2 of these, slide them down to the end. And do you see this little line, here we go, of thread that's bridging the top of these seed beads here? There's a line of thread bridging the top of the seed beads on each of these. I am going to go ahead and sew into that line there. And this is going to pull both of these down on top. I'm going to sew up through the bottom of the second bead. So now I have 2 beads on my second row, and I'm going to add another bead, a third bead. And so I'm going to pick up the bead for my second row, this red one, and then I'm going to sew into the thread that's bridging these 2 seed beads here. And this is how you add a second row to your brick stitch. I'm going to sew back up through this bead, get a little tug, and have it sit right on top of there. I'm going to do this all the way across there, where I pick up a seed bead, sew through the thread that's bridging those seed beads, and then up through the seed bead you just added. And see how it makes a nice, neat little row? I like it. It's very structural. There's a good reason why it's called brick stitch. Has a good reason for it. I'm just going to do the 2 rows of brick stitch. I'm not going to do more or extra, mostly because once you get past like 2 rows, if you're using beads that are the same size, the curve will start affecting the spaces between the beads when you're doing it on a curve like this. And so if you were going to do another one after that, you probably would want to use larger beads for that, because the curve between them, or the curve wouldn't affect the spaces between them, or increase the number of beads that you're doing this with. That does not go through there. This is my tail it got caught on there. So it is messing things up, and that's okay, because I can always correct it. Because you see, you can already see some of that curve affecting the spaces between this just on the second row. And so I don't want them to be like a huge space between my beads, so I'm only doing two rows on this. All right, so just about to the last one. And I have room for one more red seed bead here. And it is going to be attached to, since I don't have a thread bridge between this seed bead and the next, I'm just going to go right here between the loop and the seed bead because there's a little line of thread that this can go under in order to attach it on there. Then I'm going to go up through the bottom of the seed bead. If it'll let me, this 11-0 seed bead. All right. And then back down through this gap down here between the lower seed bead and this, just to get that a little on there a little bit tighter. And now I'm going to tie this off by tying my ends together. Since they're right there next to each other, pull off my needle and tie these ends. And I know there's like debates between bead weavers whether you should tie them, whether you should just sew things back through, but I don't have a lot of room for that. And also, this is not going to be moving a lot. It's going to be just kind of sitting there on the outside of the necklace. Nothing is going to be attached directly to this part. It's all going to be attached with the little loops that I made for the connector. So I'm going to do one more little knot. I'm doing a surgeon's knot, which is like a square knot, but on the second pass, instead of just going once through the loop, you go twice through the loop. All right. I don't know if it's any more secure or not, but I haven't yet had one come apart on me. So I'm gonna snip this off and then I'll burn it off afterwards, but just wanted to show you. How that looks for this little connector. I'm gonna burn off my ends, don't worry. But that is going to be part of the project that I have planned for these little connectors for a couple of different strands on a multi-strand necklace. And it's just a different way of doing that. There might be funner, cooler things you can do with it like that. But anyway, thanks for hanging out with me. And keep your eye out if you want to see the rest of the bits and bobs that I make for this necklace. They'll be on my channel. Once they're posted, I will put a link in the description. In fact, I might end up posting all 3 of them at the same time. I think that's probably what I'm going to do, just to cut down on confusion. But if you only wanted this part, then you're welcome to it. Have fun making these. Bye!